Well, the weather's turned here in Nashville, which has made some of the work that we've undertaken in training a tad more enjoyable, and coupled with the fact that we can all look back on a very competitive and positive opening to the season. I think these 3 days, 4 days post Seattle have been nice foundations and building blocks towards what will be a real challenge again at the weekend.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Drake Hills from the Tennessean, and then we'll go next to Tim Sullivan for Club and Country. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, what's up, Gary? I want to connect, obviously, game one to this Saturday, and specifically talk about that right back spot and Eric playing and obviously doing a bit of work against Jordan Morris and what Seattle was offering. What did you see from Eric in his time in that spot against Seattle, and how much of that in his selection was about the shape and what Seattle was doing, and perhaps comparing that to obviously what he's done to prove to you that he's the best in that spot at this time?
Well, I think over quite a long period of time now, Eric has, as we all know, gone from somebody who may have been on the outside looking in to somebody who's made a real serious claim for that position. And when you look at what Jordan Morris is capable of, not only his ability but what his stats tell us, I think it's astounding that when you look at the way the game unfolded, he had 17 touches of the ball, I was told, after the game. Now, in part that's down to some good defensive play. That's down to obviously a bit of attention there that Eric was able to offer individually against Jordan. But ultimately, we saw that dynamic in the Seattle team as important as any of those attacking players that they have. Eric did a wonderful job. He always shows tremendous team qualities. And at this moment in time, he's our most natural right-sided right wing-back, right full-back. And to that degree, he's gonna be difficult to dislodge from that position. What I will say is that in the course of pre-season, I think we've seen a number of qualities out of Alex Mule in that position, maybe slightly more offensively, give us a slightly different edge to that position. And I certainly wouldn't discount that as we're going through this tough run of games, either in rotation or a slightly different dynamic.
Thank you, Coach. Next we go to Tim Sullivan at Ben Wright. Go ahead, Tim.
You mentioned that a lot of your choices against Seattle were because of the type of team that Seattle is, wants to dominate the ball. And what sort of team do you see Minnesota as, and kind of what is going to be your, without giving away too much, what is going to be kind of your plan of attack for the type of team that they present?
Well, look, they still have some really, really talented attacking players. The likes of Reynoso, Lod, and Fragpagna out wide are really, really talented guys. Adrian's done a wonderful job there over a period of time of not only recruiting some very good players, he's had some turnover there as well that he's had to replace and bring players through, and he's managed to keep them incredibly competitive. But I think also when you look at the shape of their group, there were many clips of Minnesota at the weekend that replicated an awful lot of things that we do and how we go about our business. They're tough to play against. They've got good balance to their group. They've got guys that are going to compete and roll their sleeves up, physically dominant in certain areas, but they've also got some very crafty players that are capable of changing the course of any game. The big challenge for us, and obviously for them as well, is maybe flicking that switch from away to go home. What does that look like? What changes are made? And that I can't answer, of course. I can only prepare our group as well as I can to try and face another really, really difficult challenge. I mean, different, but as difficult in its own way.
Thank you, Coach. Next we'll go to Ben Wright.
Yeah, Gary, I know going into the Seattle match there was a bit of focus on Nicoladero just as one of their kind of core players. I'm wondering if Reynoso has kind of posed a similar problem for you heading into this one, and just what you make of that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at most teams in MLS now, you know, to varying degrees, they've got some very effective players. And some of them, as I say, are physically dominant and maybe athletically threatening. This group have got a nice balance of both. Amaria up front, you know, he's constantly on the move, his timing, his craftiness to link with Reynoso. You know, they're very intelligent players. And having had some understanding of how Adrian works and maybe how some of those guys in that group work, having been there for a period before, it's a simple turnover to get back into the group and to be effective. Yes, Reynoso is very, very effective for them. And yes, I would expect that they'll try and work through him an awful lot. Why wouldn't you? Somebody of that calibre. I think if we focus solely on Reynoso, we could find ourselves, you know, spring a leak somewhere else, because there's guys that are just as capable. I mean, the goal comes from Lod at the weekend. He turns up in really, you know, effective areas, positive areas, and he smells a goal. And he's done it before. He's versatile. He's played up front. So I would expect that there'll be a far more front foot approach to the game. When we played them, the one occasion at home, I think it was 2 years ago, they came and made life incredibly difficult for us, as difficult as anyone in our own stadium. And I know that we've changed an awful lot since then, and I'd like to think that over the course of time we've earned a bit more respect, but nevertheless they'll still see this fixture with our schedule of away games as one that they'll be wanting to take. So there'll be a lot of hard work and a lot of toil at the weekend, but I think we've shown before that we're capable of dealing with that, and we have a few more strings to our bow this time around.
Thank you, Coach. Next we'll go to Drake Hills, then back to Tim Sullivan. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, aside from the personnel, Gary, the mentality and really the aggression that came out of your group at the beginning of last game was something that not many teams probably try and go to Seattle, but you did it successfully. Is that something that you just want to instill as what Nashville wants to do, or is that simply just about the game plan for Seattle? Does that continue as you guys go along the road here?
Yeah, I think it's possible. Honestly, if we become predictable in what we're doing away from home or at any time, then yes, there's some positives to come out of that, because players, I think, knuckle down and nail down their roles that much better. But also, I think, you know, there are ways and means of finding the Achilles heel in any system, and over time you see teams that fall foul of that. So I don't think we need to change an awful lot, but expect over the course of this 8 games and into the season that whether it's personnel, whether it's a slight shift in one or two of the roles in the team, but ultimately I think we've shown at the weekend we're capable of going to some of the best teams in the league and getting on the front foot, but we're also capable of enduring some pressure, of absorbing that, and also being effective. I think the one thing that maybe wasn't remarked on too much at the weekend was the overall physical output of the team. You know, the 3 midfield players in general put up some incredible numbers. I thought the fitness and the well-being of the group, the physical nature of the group was in really good condition. And that in itself helped us to maintain a particular standard.
Tim Sullivan, you're on with head coach Gary Smith.
Especially early last year, we talked a lot about how Randall was playing well and maybe not being rewarded for it. Obviously, with an assist in the opening game, is he the sort of guy that can give him the confidence to keep that up? Is it something that you think can positively impact his play to get that reward already?
Absolutely. I think any attacking player, when they can get on the score sheet as quickly as possible, when they're a part of any creation, or as you say here, assists, it's a boost. I think Randall's unique in the way that, you know, he can play multiple positions. I certainly wouldn't have a problem at the weekend or down the line in popping him into a more central area of midfield to make it more creative and possibly add a more attacking player to the group higher up the field. But he certainly gives us, or me, the opportunity and the mindset to be able to manoeuvre and to change any slight balance or dynamic in the group as I wish. And more so, he's taking that information on board. His energy, his output in the game is very high, and he's a competitive individual, very tenacious. For somebody as creative as he is, he's got a very tenacious edge as well, which is great.
We'll wrap up today's session with head coach Gary Smith and Drake Hills from the Tennessee. Go ahead, Drake.
Gary, as far as the rookies are concerned with Ahmed and Will, are they now under contract? What's the status of those two, Will and Online?
Yeah, those two guys had their options picked up. They're part of the roster and part of the group, which we're delighted to have been able to achieve. I wasn't aware that wasn't made public, but those guys are added to the roster. I think if you look at the way that the squad's made up online, I don't think anyone makes that roster unless they're under contract. Both of those guys have got tremendous potential and very bright futures. You know, the fact that we paid money to get up the scale in the first round to bring Ahmed into the group tells a bit of a story, and there's real hopes that in the future Ahmed's going to be a potential starter for the group. So there'll be a lot of hard work for the lad in between. It's not always an easy transition, and I think guys like Jack and Alistair, when you look at the progress they made and how quickly they made it in a group that was only just put together, so the opportunities may have been a tad more open to them there, whereas this group is far more stable with some senior guys holding down those positions. It's not to say that they can't break into the group, of course, but it certainly means that there's a lot more hard work to try and achieve that.